The laughter echoed, sharp and cruel, over the clinking of glasses and the smooth jazz. "Look at him, still cleaning up after us, even tonight." It was just a whisper, but it cut through the celebratory hum like a knife. They watched him, David. Sterling, wiping down a spill near the desert table. A janitor. Just a janitor. He moved with a quiet grace, his hands though calloused from years of work, surprisingly deliberate as they polished away the champagne stain. He wore his pressed uniform, as always, meticulously clean, unassuming. They, in their designer clothes and smug smiles, believed they knew exactly who he was. A silent fixture, a background character, serving as a subtle reminder of the help, ensuring their corporate fantasy remained untainted by the mundane. They saw the mop, the bucket, the unassuming posture. They didn't see the mind behind the eyes, calculating, observing, planning. But what they didn't know, what would shatter their carefully constructed world in mere minutes, was the truth. This wasn't just a staff party, this was his company. Every polished floor, every glowing screen, every stock option they flaunted, every single brick in that gleaming tower, it all belonged to him. And tonight, they had mocked the wrong man. What happens when the invisible man, the one no one sees, the one they dismiss with a casual wave or a whispered joke, turns out to be the most powerful person in the room? The answer will not just shock them, it will turn their arrogance into ash and redefine everything they thought they knew about worth and leadership. David Sterling moved through the labyrinthine corridors of Aegis Innovations with the quiet, almost ethereal efficiency of someone who knew every inch of the building by heart. For 5 years he had been the night shift janitor here, a shadow in the gleaming glass and steel. From 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., 5 nights a week, he was the ghost in the machine, the silent guardian, ensuring the opulent boardrooms, the buzzing server rooms, and the sprawling open-plan offices were spotless and ready for the next day's corporate ballet. He saw everything. He witnessed the flickering blue light of ambition burning late into the night, the hushed phone calls that sealed multi-million-dollar deals, the frantic pacing of stressed-out middle managers, the quiet despair of projects failing, and the unbridled joy of breakthroughs. He saw the company's true face when the masks came off, the discarded dreams in overflowing trash bins, the half-eaten meals left carelessly on desks, the subtle rivalries, the hurried romances in empty conference rooms. He saw the ambitious, young executives brimming with self-importance, the tired, often underpaid support staff who kept the gears turning, and they, in turn, saw nothing but the blur of his uniform. He was the background hum, the unnoticed presence, the man who emptied their wastebaskets but never their thoughts. He was a utility, an afterthought. Tonight was different. It was Aegis Innovation's 10th anniversary gala, an extravagant affair. Held in the company's grandest event space on the 30th floor, the day staff, the real employees, as they often subtly put it, were celebrating a decade of exponential growth in a recent multi-million-dollar acquisition that promised even greater wealth. David had been explicitly asked by HR to stay on specifically to handle any unexpected messes that might arise from such a lavish gathering. He usually declined such invitations, preferring his solitude, but a direct request from HR, relayed through his supervisor, was hard to refuse. There was a curiosity, too. Final phase of his long-term observation. He finished wiping down a particularly sticky spilled drink, the remnants of champagne fizzing against the polished marble floor, the scent of spilled bubbly mingled with expensive perfumes and catered delicacies. Olivia Vance, a marketing manager notorious for her sharp tongue, designer suits, and even sharper ambition, watched him with a thin, knowing smirk from across the room. She nudged her colleague, Liam Turner, a perpetually grinning account executive. Olivia Vance, voice a little too loud, condescending, still at it, David. You really are dedicated. Liam chuckled beside her, raising his glass. Liam Turner, voice feigning good humor. But with an edge, some people just love their work, right, David? The purity of a clean floor. David paused, a quiet, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. He straightened up, meeting Olivia's gaze calmly. David Sterling, voice. Calm, melodic, subtly containing layers they couldn't perceive, just making sure everything's perfect for your big night. He replied, his voice calm, almost melodic. Containing layers they couldn't begin to perceive. Olivia scoffed softly, turning her back dismissively. Olivia Vance, whispering to Liam. Loud enough to be heard well. Someone has to. Imagine. 10 years here, and still cleaning toilets? No ambition at all. Liam nodded, taking a large gulp of his drink. Liam Turner, whispering back, equally dismissive. Yeah, definitely not management material. You gotta have that hunger, that fire to climb, you know? Some folks are just content. David heard them. He always heard. He always knew what was being said, what was implied. He folded his rag neatly and moved away, the whispers clinging to him like invisible dust. He scanned the room, his eyes missing nothing. The CEO, Arthur Sterling, a silver-haired titan of industry, was accepting accolades on stage, his voice booming over the speakers. Board members mingled with key clients, their laughter echoing prosperity, their conversations a web of deals and dividends. And Aegis Innovations continued to boast its commitment to diversity and opportunity. Slogans plastered on sleek digital screens above the very people who dismissed him. Their casual cruelty, a stark contrast to the corporate FACA. David found a quiet corner near the panoramic windows, overlooking the glittering expanse of the Chicago skyline. He watched the city lights, the tiny cars moving far below, utterly oblivious to the quiet drama playing out 30 floors up. He thought about simply finishing his duties and leaving, slipping away as he usually did when the night was over. But something held him there. A feeling, a sense that this night, this culmination of casual dismissal and ingrained prejudice, needed an answer. An answer no one in this room was prepared for. He adjusted his uniform, a quiet determination settling over him. As the hours passed, the party's energy shifted from celebratory buzz to unrestrained revelry. Speeches blurred into toasts, toasts into raucous laughter and loose-tongued conversations. The arrogance in the room grew bolder, fueled by an endless supply of champagne and the heady scent of self-congratulation. David, still in his crisp janitor's uniform, remained a walking, breathing anachronism in their exclusive celebration. He was a constant, subtle reminder of the other, the background, stark contrast to the glitz and assumed importance of the attendees. And with each passing hour, the comments directed his way grew sharper, less veiled, betraying the deeper prejudices that festered beneath the veneer of corporate professionalism. Chloe Miller, the HR director who lectured new hires on inclusivity metrics and cultural sensitivity, stumbled past him near a grouping of potted palms. Her friend, equally tipsy, giggled beside her. Chloe gestured vaguely towards David, her words slurring slightly. Chloe Miller, voice, dismissive, slightly mocking. Oh, careful there. Won't want to get dust on your expensive shoes, will you? Some of us work hard for these. She actually reached out and patted his arm, a patronizing gesture. Before swaying away, David simply offered a small, polite nod, his expression unchanging. A mask perfected over decades. Later, the scene at the open bar became even more telling. Marcus Green, the senior VP of sales, a man whose booming voice often filled the office, was holding court. He had just closed a major deal and was exceptionally boisterous. He saw David quietly collecting empty glasses from a nearby table. Marcus, with a performative flourish, gestured towards David to the perplexed bartender. Marcus Green, voice, loud condescending for his audience. Hey bartender, can you get him a water? No, actually, he paused, a cruel smirk spreading across his face. Make it a juice box. I wouldn't want him getting too wild on us tonight, right fellas? His colleagues around him snickered, a few raising their glasses. In a mocking salute to David's restraint, David's grip tightened almost imperceptibly on the mop handle he leaned against. This wasn't just about cleaning. This was about presence, about being seen, yet entirely invisible. It was the same. Look, he'd seen countless times throughout his life the casual dismissal of someone deemed less educated, less sophisticated, less important, less human. It was the assumption that his uniform defined his entire being, that his presence was merely functional, never meaningful. The energy in the room reached a fever pitch as the climax of the night arrived, the long-awaited announcement of Aegis Innovation's new majority owner. The company had been secretly acquired weeks ago, fueling a frenzy of rumors about who the new visionary leader would be. Would it be a private equity firm? A rival tech giant? The suspense was unbearable. Arthur Sterling, the current CEO, a man who had built Aegis from a startup into a behemoth, stepped onto the elaborately lit stage, tapping the microphone to silence the excited chatter. The room quieted, anticipation thick in the air. The collective hopes of bonuses and promotions hanging on his next words. Arthur Sterling. Voice.
What?
Grand, slightly theatrical, my friends, my colleagues. Tonight we celebrate not just Aegis's incredible past, but its incredibly bright future. As many of you know, our expansion into new global markets, our aggressive R&D, and our strategic growth required a powerful partner, a visionary, someone with the foresight, the capital, and the sheer genius to take Aegis to the next level, globally. He paused for dramatic effect, letting the tension build. It gives me immense pleasure and frankly some personal surprise. He added a slight, nervous laugh to announce that Aegis Innovations has been acquired by the Sterling Group. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. The Sterling Group? Who are they? Someone whispered, confusion turning to muted disappointment. Never heard of them. Others frantically pulled out phones trying to Google the name. Arthur Sterling. Voice, his tone building. Gesturing emphatically towards the main entrance and the man behind the Sterling Group, the new majority shareholder. The man who now owns Aegis Innovations. He's here tonight. Arthur Sterling turned to face the grand main doors of the event hall, gesturing expansively. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. David Sterling. A beat of stunned silence. The murmuring died completely. No one moved. The faces in the crowd shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to utter bewilderment. They stared at the doors, expecting a new, imposing figure to stride in. Perhaps a sharp-suited finance mogul or a Silicon Valley disruptor. But no one did. The doors remained closed. The silence stretched thick with awkwardness. Arthur Sterling, standing alone on stage, looked genuinely puzzled. He glanced nervously at the stage manager, then back at the silent, expectant crowd. "Is he not here?" he murmured into the microphone, his voice betraying his confusion. Then slowly, deliberately, a figure stepped out from his quiet corner near the panoramic windows. It was David, still holding his mop, still in his janitor's uniform. He walked slowly, unhurriedly, towards the stage. The spotlights, previously focused on the empty doors, now caught his uniform, highlighting the familiar blue fabric, the worn but-clean work boots, the janitor's uniform. The collective gasp was audible. It was a sound of absolute, immediate recognition, laced with dawning horror. Olivia Vance, who moments ago had been smugly laughing about his lack of ambition, dropped her champagne flute. It shattered on the marble floor, but no one heard it over the sudden, deafening, absolute silence that had fallen over the entire room. Marcus Green's jaw hung open, his face turning an alarming shade of ashen gray. Chloe Miller looked like she'd seen a ghost, her eyes wide with shock and a sudden, terrifying comprehension. David reached the stage, his presence commanding the space without a single word. Arthur Sterling, still bewildered, his face a mixture of shock and dawning understanding, managed to gesture weakly towards him. Arthur Sterling. Voice a raw whisper into the microphone. David. Our David? David gently took the microphone from Arthur's trembling hand. His voice, once quiet and unassuming, now filled the opulent hall. Calm, clear, and utterly commanding, resonating with an authority that silenced every last thought in the room. David Sterling, voice steady, powerful, with a hint of steel. Good evening, everyone. Yes, you're David, Mr. Sterling. The single, shattering sentence hung in the air, the shockwave rippling through every person in the room. The initial stunned silence gave way to a whirlwind of desperate whispers. Then a frantic, almost comical scramble for composure. Faces that had minutes ago held smug amusement and casual disdain now contorted with a grotesque mixture of fear, embarrassment, and a dawning, soul-chilling horror. Olivia Vance, who had just mocked his lack of ambition and patronized his presence, visibly recoiled, her hand flying to her mouth as if to staunch a scream. Marcus Green, who suggested a juice box for the janitor, turned an alarming shade of pale, his eyes darting frantically around the room, as if searching for an escape route. Chloe Miller, the HR director, simply stood frozen, her smile utterly gone, replaced by a ghastly blinked. David, still in his janitor's uniform, stood center stage. He hadn't changed clothes. He hadn't needed to. The uniform was part of the message. He held the microphone not with the awkwardness of a first-time speaker, but with the innate confidence of someone accustomed to holding power. He let the silence linger, extending it, absorbing the sudden, profound, and terrifying shift in the room's energy. His gaze, once overlooked, now felt like a laser, sweeping slowly, resolutely over the stunned faces, recognizing each one who had dismissed him, joked about him, or simply walked past him for years as if he were invisible. He saw the shift in their eyes from condescension to fear, from amusement to dawning realization. David Sterling, Voice.com, measured but with an undeniable edge. I believe many of you are surprised, perhaps even uncomfortable. He paused again, letting the word uncomfortable hang in the air, allowing them to truly feel its weight. For 5 years, he continued, his voice gaining a subtle, controlled power, I have walked these halls, diligently cleaning up after Aegis's innovations. I've seen a lot, I've heard a lot, and tonight at our 10th anniversary celebration, I learned even more about the culture here than I had anticipated. His words hung heavy in the air, each one a hammer blow striking at their carefully constructed reality. Arthur Sterling, the now former CEO, stood awkwardly beside him, looking utterly deflated, as if he'd been struck by an unseen force. He instinctively took a step back, making more space for David Sterling. Voice, with escalating intensity, some of you saw a janitor, a uniform, an invisible man. Some of you made jokes. Some of you whispered about my lack of ambition and my place in this hierarchy. What none of you bothered to see, what you refused to acknowledge beyond the surface, was the man, the strategist, the investor, the visionary who was quietly and meticulously acquiring, controlling shares in this very company, brick by brick, share by share. He made a subtle gesture with his free hand, and the sleek digital screens that had, minutes ago, proudly displayed Aegis's decade of growth metrics and corporate platitudes, abruptly changed. News headlines flashed across them, not about Aegis, but about the Sterling Group. Blurry, hastily taken photos of David in different contexts appeared. Sterling Group acquires struggling tech startups, turns them into powerhouses. David Sterling, the silent billionaire philanthropist. His unseen empire. From community centers to global enterprises, the Sterling method of transformative investment. Old, grainy photos of a younger David appeared, not in a janitor's uniform, but in various stages of his career, leading community workshops, speaking at small business conferences, shaking hands with tech innovators who were now industry legends. One image showed him receiving an award from a major urban development board. The room erupted into a desperate, panicked murmur. Phones were pulled out, not for recording mockery, but for frantic, wide-eyed fact-checking. Fingers flew across screens. A quick search of Sterling Group on their devices revealed a colossal, diversified holding company, a multi-billion-dollar enterprise with significant stakes across various sectors: renewable energy, sustainable manufacturing, innovative logistics, and, ironically, several major luxury hospitality chains renowned for their impeccable service standards and employee respect. Aegis Innovations wasn't just acquired, it was a mere, albeit significant, new piece in a vast, quietly assembled empire that dwarfed their own company. The realization of David's true wealth and influence crashed over them like a cold, inescapable wave, David let the images and the frantic whispers sink in. He gave them time to connect the dots, to feel the full weight of their misjudgment. David, sterling voice, now. A resonant declaration. My journey has always been about understanding what truly makes a company strong. It's not just the bottom line on a quarterly report. It's the intrinsic value of every individual. It's the respect, the dignity extended to every person who walks through these doors, regardless of their role. Something, it appears, has been in tragically short supply here at Aegis Innovations. His gaze sharpened, locking directly onto Olivia Vance, who had gone from green to white with shock, looking like she wanted the very floor to swallow her whole. Then at Marcus Green, whose face was a mask of utter despair and self-preservation. Chloe Miller simply stared, her professional facade completely shattered. David Sterling, voice, delivering the final blow to their illusions tonight. I saw the true, unvarnished face of Aegis's Innovations corporate culture, and it is not the future I envision for my company. Culture where a man in a uniform is dismissed, belittled, made invisible. That culture ends now. The absolute silence that followed David's declaration was chilling, broken only by the frantic tapping on phones as the remaining employees frantically confirmed the truth of his words. David looked out at the faces, the raw shock, the dawning fear, the utter mortification. He understood it. He'd seen that same profound shift in demeanor countless times from others in different contexts. It was the precise, brutal moment when deeply ingrained assumptions shattered, and an undeniable, inconvenient reality hit with the force of a tidal wave. His mind drifted back, not just 5 years to when he started as a janitor here, but decades earlier, to the very crucible that forged him. He grew up in the south side of Chicago, in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, but resilience was abundant. And dreams, though often deferred, burned fiercely. His mother, a single parent who worked tirelessly at 2, sometimes 3, demanding jobs, cleaning offices during the day, waitressing at night, instilled in him the foundational values of hard work, unwavering discipline, and, most importantly, dignity. Son, she'd always say, her voice soft but firm, as she polished their worn kitchen table, no matter what you do, no matter where you are, carry yourself with pride. People might not see your worth, they might try to diminish you, but you always know it, and that's what truly matters. He didn't go to an Ivy League. His path was more unconventional, forged by necessity and sheer will. He started at community college, taking evening classes after working construction jobs during the day. He then worked his way through night school, meticulously earning a business degree, while others his age were just starting their careers. He learned early on that true value often lay hidden, overlooked. His first foray into entrepreneurship was a small, local recycling initiative he started in his neighborhood, initially scoffed at by city officials. But David saw potential where others saw only waste, transforming discarded materials into reusable resources. That modest venture blossomed, through sheer grit and strategic thinking, into a citywide waste management company. He was obsessive about reinvesting every penny, studying market trends and making shrewd, calculated risks that paid off handsomely. He didn't just acquire struggling businesses, transform them. He bought factories on the brink of closure, not to strip them for parts, but to rebuild them, infuse them with new purpose, and, crucially, to infuse them with a culture where every single employee, from the factory floor to the executive suite, was treated with respect. His sterling method became renowned in quiet, influential circles, a disruptive philosophy that human capital was the most valuable asset, that a company's true strength lay in its weakest link, being nurtured, it's invested in, and empowered, rather than being discarded or ignored. He understood that a truly efficient machine was one where every cog felt valued. His interest in Aegis Innovations began almost a decade ago. He admired their early spirit of innovation, their groundbreaking tech patents. But as they grew rapidly, he watched with concern as their internal culture seemed to atrophy, giving way to an insidious coldness. He saw the casual dismissals, the lack of genuine respect for those outside the immediate executive bubble, the quiet dehumanization of the janitors, the security guards, the administrative assistants. He started discreetly acquiring shares, small batches at first, then larger and larger blocks. It wasn't about mere financial investment or even revenge for his past experiences. It was an investment in a deeply flawed, but potentially valuable, asset. He believed Aegis could be great, truly great, but not with its current internal decay, and for the last 5 years, he'd taken on the janitorial role himself. It was more than a disguise. It was a hands-on audit, a way to be truly immersed. To understand the company's real heartbeat, its unseen gears, the undercurrents of its human ecosystem. To truly understand the dignity, or profound lack thereof, within its walls, he emptied trash cans, but he also collected data, cleaned surfaces, but he also observed interactions, listened to hushed conversations, saw the unspoken power dynamics. He saw the genuine struggles of the long hours, the lower-paid staff put in their hidden talents, their quiet dreams. He also saw, firsthand, the casual condescension of those at the top, their profound blindness to the very people who kept their corporate machine running. He saw it tonight, raw, amplified, cruel. He had needed to see it with his own eyes, too. Feel the subtle slights, to be the recipient of their disdain. And now, armed with that profound personal understanding, he had. David took a deep, steadying breath, his gaze unwavering as it settled on Arthur Sterling, the now former CEO who looked utterly diminished, his silver hair seeming to have lost its luster, his entire posture shrinking under the weight of the seed. Revelation. Arthur's face was pale, his earlier grandiosity replaced by utter defeat. David Sterling, voice, firm, resonant, cutting through the lingering tension. Arthur, you successfully ran a company by the numbers. Yes. Your quarterly reports were commendable, your acquisitions impressive, but you failed on the most fundamental level, human respect. You cultivated a culture where only those at the top, those with the right titles, the right education, were deemed worthy of basic dignity. You allowed arrogance to fester, and you let a pervasive, quiet dehumanization poison your workforce. And that, Arthur, ends tonight. Arthur Sterling tried to speak, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly, but no words came out. His shoulders slumped. David Sterling, voice. A declarative statement that echoed through the stunned silence as of this moment. I am officially taking over as CEO of Aegis Innovations. The transition is immediate and complete. Another collective gasp, sharper this time, rippled through the already shell-shocked crowd. The very air in the ballroom seemed to crackle with disbelief and a chilling understanding of the power. Shift, David Sterling, voice, absolute, unyielding, effective, immediately. Olivia Vance, Liam Turner, Chloe Miller, and Marcus Green are terminated. Their employment with Aegis Innovations is concluded tonight. The named individuals froze, their faces a horrifying tableau of utter disbelief, then dawning panic, then a sudden crushing despair. Olivia Vance let out a small, strangled, almost animalistic sound, her eyes wide and fixed on David. Marcus Green's knees visibly buckled, and he had to lean against a table for support, his face a mask of utter devastation. Chloe Miller simply stood, her professional composure completely shattered, tears beginning to stream down her face. Others around them quickly distanced themselves, as if the very air near the terminated executives was contaminated. David Sterling, voice, his tone unwavering, direct your dismissal is not simply for your actions tonight. Though they were a disgraceful and egregious display of disrespect and casual prejudice, it is for a pervasive pattern of behavior that undermines the core values I represent, the values upon which the Sterling Group was built, the values this company will now unequivocally embody. Our actions have demonstrated a fundamental lack of empathy and professional conduct that is incompatible with Aegis's innovations under my leadership. He then looked directly at the rest of the stunned employees, his gaze sweeping slowly, purposefully across the faces of hundreds of people who had been complicit in the culture, either actively or passively. David Sterling, voice now shifting. Offering a path forward for the rest of you, I want you to understand something very clearly. This is not about fear. This is not about retribution. This is about transformation. This is about building a better company, a stronger company from the ground up, with a foundation of genuine respect. We will have a complete cultural overhaul. Starting tomorrow, every single employee, from the newest intern to the most seasoned executive, will undergo mandatory intensive training on respect, empathy, and inclusive leadership. This is not a suggestion, this is a requirement. He gestured to a new set of slides appearing on the digital screens. A comprehensive, color-coded plan for internal restructuring, new HR initiatives, and a robust employee well-being program, David Sterling. Furthermore, there will be open lines of communication, accessible at every level, and a completely anonymous reporting system for any acts of disrespect, discrimination, or harassment. My door, the CEO's door, will always be open to every single one of you. Aegis's innovations will become a place where every individual, regardless of their role, their title, their background, their perceived status, is treated with the inherent dignity they deserve. This is not a philosophy to be preached. It is a policy to be lived. He paused, letting his words sink in, allowing the gravity of the shift to fully register. David Sterling, and finally, concluded, his voice resonating with quiet conviction. I will also be immediately increasing the minimum wage for all hourly staff by 30%. Because respect, in my company, begins with fair compensation and opportunity for every person who contributes to our success. A ripple of murmurs, this time not of fear or shock, but of stunned appreciation, quiet awe, and even tears, rippled through the room. Many of the lower-level staff, the administrative assistants, the security guards, the other custodial workers, those who might have once been dismissed and overlooked, exchanged wide-eyed glances, hope dawning in their eyes. A few quiet tears of relief and gratitude were shed in corners of the room, tangible shift in morale almost instantly. David Sterling, you may have seen me cleaning floors for the last 5 years. From now on, you will see me building a foundation. A foundation of respect, equity, and genuine innovation that will define Aegis Innovations for the next decade and beyond. This is not just a company. This is a community. And tonight, the cleanup begins. He stepped away from the microphone, the uniform still on, his gaze calm and steady. The applause began slowly, tentatively at first, a few claps from the back, then swelled into a roaring, sustained ovation that filled the grand ballroom. It was not just for a new CEO in a tailored suit, but for the janitor who had reminded them all, in the most unexpected and powerful way possible, what it truly meant to lead with integrity and humanity. Arthur Sterling, looking completely defeated, but perhaps a glimmer of understanding in his eyes, stepped forward and silently, respectfully, shook David's hand. The balance of power had shifted forever. Asterisk, the news of the Aegis Innovations takeover by the mysterious Sterling Group, and the earth-shattering revelation that its new CEO was the company's own janitor, sent shockwaves not just through Chicago, but across the entire corporate world. Headlines screamed from every news outlet and financial blog. Janitor buys his own company. A silent billionaire's stunner acquisition. The ultimate underdog story. A tale of hidden power. Social media exploded with the hashtag the janitor CEO, turning David Sterling into an overnight legend. A symbol of justice, delivered with quiet, devastating precision. But it was more than just a sensational headline. David Sterling immediately implemented the sweeping changes he announced. Olivia Vance, Liam Turner, Chloe Miller, and Marcus Green found themselves not only terminated, but effectively blacklisted in the industry. Their public apologies issued days later were hollow, carefully worded, and came far too late. Their casual cruelty and ingrained biases were broadcast to the world, a powerful cautionary tale. They struggled to find new employment, facing the very invisibility and dismissal they had so readily inflicted on others within 6 short months. Aegis Innovations underwent a profound, undeniable transformation. The mandatory empathy training wasn't just a PR stunt. It was a deeply ingrained, ongoing process. David led many of the initial sessions himself, sitting in small groups, sharing personal anecdotes about his journey, and challenging biases head-on. Not with anger, but with an unwavering expectation of change. The open-door policy was real and transparent. He regularly ate lunch in the bustling staff cafeteria, not in a private dining room, genuinely listening to concerns from every level of the organization. He instituted a robust mentorship program that specifically paired senior executives with junior staff from diverse backgrounds, fostering understanding and breaking down traditional silos. The cultural shift was undeniable, palpable. Employee morale, once a fragile thing, soared to unprecedented levels. Retention rates skyrocketed, and the company quickly became a coveted employer, attracting top talent who valued its new ethos. And ironically, with a genuinely inclusive, respected, and empowered workforce, creativity, productivity, and innovation reached new heights. Aegis Innovations under David's leadership wasn't just profitable, it was genuinely thriving. A beacon of what a company could be when built on respect. David Sterling didn't discard his janitor's uniform entirely. On his first official day as CEO, after his initial board meetings, quietly put on a clean uniform and with a subtle smile, cleaned his own expansive corner office. Once a month, he still took a quiet tour of the building during the night shift, sometimes even wiping down a conference table or emptying a trash bin himself. It was a silent, powerful reminder to himself, to his executive team, and to the few longtime employees who recognized him, of where he came from, the principles he championed, and the true meaning of service. His story became more than a viral moment. It became a legend, a case study taught in business schools about unconventional leadership and the power of corporate culture. He was celebrated in civil rights discussions and management conferences worldwide, lauded not just for his business acumen and his vast empire, but for his profound, unwavering commitment to human dignity. He proved beyond any doubt that true power wasn't about the title you held, the office you occupied, or the wealth you accumulated, but about the respect you earned and the respect you extended to others. And sometimes, the most revolutionary, change comes not from a flashy new product or a genius marketing campaign, but from the most unexpected places, embodied by the person everyone thought was invisible. The cleaning up wasn't just done for a night, it only just begun for the entire industry. David Sterling's story is a powerful, undeniable reminder that worth is not determined by job titles, by the clothes we wear, or by outward appearances. It's about the inherent dignity in every single person, a dignity that demands to be seen and respected. Have you ever felt dismissed or unseen, just like David? Have you witnessed someone else being marginalized because of assumptions about their status? What did you do, or what would you do? Share your story and your thoughts in the comments below if this narrative resonated with you, if it sparked a belief in a more respectful, equitable, and just world. Then we invite you to join us in amplifying these vital messages. Subscribe to this channel to discover more true stories of resilience, unexpected power, and profound transformation. Your support helps us to bring light to overlooked narratives and amplify voices that change perspectives. One powerful story at a time. Don't let the vital lessons of dignity and respect fade into the background. Let's make sure every story of triumph over assumption is seen and heard, creating a ripple effect that changes our world for the better.